Ecos Virtuales, esta sesión de lecturas que estamos haciendo de manera remota desde que inició la pandemia. For everyone on the English-speaking side, welcome to this second session of the second yearly round of readings that we call Ecos Virtuales. It's good to see so many familiar faces, and I'm going to hand it over to Lucia, who's going to introduce and give us an opening reading.
Thank you very much. Muchas gracias a todos los que están aquí, los que se conectaron a este Zoom, que se ha vuelto como un espacio, también un espacio como de nicho, de celebración poética, de celebración performática, de todo un poco. Hoy es el Día de la Tierra, ¿no? 22 de abril, y nada, se me hace muy, muy increíble poder juntarnos en este día a escuchar poesía, a compartir. Y bueno, quisiera dar un pequeño anuncio. Hemos estado traduciendo durante toda la pandemia el trabajo de Peter Lamborn Wilson, Hacking Bay, que escribió La zona temporalmente autónoma, hizo mucho trabajo sobre el hermeticismo verde, que es unir la idea de ecología y de alquimia. Entonces, hoy también para conmemorar sus ideas y la inspiración que ha generado en nosotros y en Disonare, quisiera leer un cachito del libro de Green Hermeticism. And well, I wanted to thank you all for coming. It is great to celebrate poetry, to celebrate community in today's Earth Day, as you already know. And even though it's been a really hard year and so many hard political things are happening all the time, social things, it's always good to remember that we have ourselves as community, and that we can still breathe in a poetic space of experimentation. So this is Ecos Virtuales. And I wanted to do a little announcement that since a year ago, we've been translating the work of Hacking Bay for Disonare of Peter Lamborn Wilson. He was really famous for creating the temporary autonomous zone, the idea of this possible space of resistance. And he also was part of the movement called Green Hermeticism, which unites the idea of ecology and alchemy. So just to commemorate and celebrate his amazing kind of recuperation of these thoughts, I just wanted to read a really, really small paragraph to start Ecos Virtuales. And it says, phenomenologically, it starts with the unity of existence or matter and consciousness, and with the unity of all phenomena of consciousness. Consciousness always identifying consciousness. So thank you, and we will start with the amazing Kyle Dacuyan from New York.
Kyle Dacuyan writes poems and makes performance from anarchies of language and movement. He is executive director of the Poetry Project at St. Mark's. Kyle Dacuyan escribe poemas y hace performances a partir de las anarquías del lenguaje y el movimiento. Es el director ejecutivo del Poetry Project in St. Mark's. It's an honor to have you, Kyle.
Thank you, Lucia. Thank you, Diego. Thank you, Disonare. I am going to read one poem, and it is The More You Have It, the Less It Exists. I was looking for sleep, but everything was glass. I kept walking into the walls of corridors I could not perceive. Hello, I would say when my path crossed another's. Hello, I'm looking for sleep, only to recognize upon touching the translucent surfaces what it was that came between us, which was only everything. Everywhere invisible corners and senseless boundaries. But what is sense relative to unrelenting nonsense? I could hear tapping overhead as though the Morse code of a neighbor I would never meet. It was a vast stage, an array of scenes of people oblivious in our respective labyrinths. Or perhaps there were no people on the other side, or no other side at all. I grew tired. No. I could not remember a time before exhaustion. I saw a person emerging from a yellow jacket nest and sieged with swarm, a legless man walking the perimeter of a gas station with his hands. I saw a woman climbing into a trunk of mud and emerging and re-entering some abject ritual, and children shackling the wrists of other children behind their backs. And everywhere deeper I went, there were others on parallel, separate tracks with rising tide and fire at their sides, swallowing towers, strip malls, the rows of houses and hybridized trees, above ground pools, clothes flapping on the line, an abandoned weed whacker leaning on the chain link with a runs good sign, mountains of junk, refrigerators and dishwashers, the accessories of what I imagined had once been domesticity littering the monstrous coast, the railroad flowers that die in the exhaust. And then I was running, and I was flanked on both sides with streams of people sleeping upright, packed so closely they were standing. Hello, I yelled, my palms and then my fists upon the glass. I'm looking for sleep, but they were sleeping and shuddering past me by conveyor. And then I saw a child so wretched and untouchable. I knew him to be myself, pitiful, a something plowing the earth with his horns, rutting the long track he walked, and his back warped in a question mark of agony. I could feel the fur of me bristle with recognition. I was this something, the horizon of this child. He was he. I wanted to say something to him. He was waiting. I could see. He could see. I could see. I would tell him to rest if I could tell him anything. He thought, I thought I could see. I could see. He thought he was waiting. I was waiting to see. I would tell him I was looking for sleep for you. You see, I thought he was looking for thought I could see. I would say, I am trying to look at nothing until I see something. I'm trying to see. He would tell of waiting. I thought if I could tell him I see you, I would tell him he never sleeps. I could see him waiting. I was always waiting. I thought when I was him, though I could not tell if sleep was what I needed, or if what he was sleep, or what I was need or want or waiting, or what I was thought, or if he could see that he was anything. You are, I would tell him, you are, you are. He thought, I thought, though he could never tell it. I saw nor rest, and for the rest of time I spoke, I told, I thought, I needed, I wanted, I waited for sleep, but there was no one there and nothing I could do. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much. It was an amazing, amazing opening and poem. Thank you. Thank you, Kai. Our next performers are Rosa Ibañez y Nico Trompe. Rosa Ibañez is a sound artist who explores states of trance. Nico Trompe collects traditional stories and reinterprets them in multiple formats. Together, they combine ancestral and contemporary technologies to compose journeys of sound. Rosa Ibañez es artista sonora y explora los estados del trance. Nico Trompe colecciona historias tradicionales y las reinterpreta en múltiples formatos. Juntos combinan tecnologías ancestrales y contemporáneas para componer viajes de sonido. Bienvenidos, Ana y Nico.
Hola, muchas gracias. Yo soy Ana Rosa, él es Nicolás, y vamos a interpretar unas décimas que escribimos en la cuarentena del año pasado, que son sobre los ecos de la Tierra, en este Día de la Tierra. We are going to interpret a poetry written in decimas. It's a decimal system that we wrote in the quarantine last year, and it's about the echoes of the earth. Vienen del viento los ecos, rebotando por la tierra, crepitan en la madera, van llenando cada hueco. En una selva tupida o profundo en una cueva, es difícil ver la huella, encontrar la salida. En esta vida florida, incluso los valles secos, bajo los árboles chuecos, tiene una voz a cantar. Así que ponte a escuchar. Vienen del viento los ecos. Siguiendo las voces viejas, se siente claro el camino. Oyendo esos finos trinos, me he quedado perpleja. Que en el tiempo se entreteja los silbidos de la sierra, el mugir de la becerra y la rana entre los juncos. Todas las voces del mundo rebotando por la tierra. Cada grano en la granada, cada arena del granito, son susurros chiquititos como el agua en la cascada. Y es el eco en la quebrada que se escucha donde fuera, hasta abajo de la higuera, recostada sobre el suelo. Esos ecos en el cielo crepitan en la madera. Resuenan en los rincones, en todo lo más profundo. En este cantar me hundo a aprender las lecciones. Todo un mar de pasiones me contaba ayer un viejo. Dijo, si algún día peco, será de puro curioso. De los ecos misteriosos van llenando cada hueco. Vienen del viento los ecos, rebotando por la tierra, crepitan en la madera, van llenando cada hueco. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias, Ana, Nico, increíble. Gracias por la resonancia. Ana y Nico están en Berlín ahorita y se me olvida que voy a compartir aquí en el chat como las biografías de cada uno y los websites o cualquier cosa que tenga. I will be sharing on the chat the bios and the websites if you guys want to follow up with each other. The next reader is Imani Elizabeth Jackson. Imani Elizabeth Jackson es una poeta de Chicago. Su primer libro, Flag, será publicado por Future Poem y su libreto, Sal Sitting, está disponible en Gloss. Imani Elizabeth Jackson is a poet from Chicago. Her first book, Flag, is forthcoming from Future Poem, and her chapbook, Sal Sitting, is available from Gloss. Welcome, Imani.
Hi. Thank you all so much for having me today. It's so good to be in your company. I'm just going to read a bit from the chapbook from Salt Sitting. And I have a bit of pink salt with me today, which I like to read with when I have it. So if you have some salt nearby, I invite you to also just sit with it for a moment while I go through this. Pink, you just like noise. Sweet pink, this little light of yours. Sweet pink, sweet glow, orange and sweat, the mineral from in. Sweat the mineral from in. Blue down your surroundings. Blue down your surroundings, peachy baby. Blue down your surroundings, peachy baby, but unblue me, ease my breath. I wanted a body, an earth body to be mine, mine own earth body, not mind, but mine, earth body to mine, earth body to mind, earth body to mind its own business. I wanted an earth body to cure and be cured. Xuan says the Afrofuture ain't shiny. It's a garden and a soft bed. It will be a seabed, an old thing, ancient. It is a seabed, dried up and hardened, a hard thing set to soften. Sweetheart, I wanted to be well. A well is an earth pit too. I want so much to be well. Light waves need nothing but to see, be vivid and sharp in a vacuum, be sealed, grain by grain, and sifted silently. The light for the hunt gets you back to where it's warmer. Evident of the earth body, certain sediments laced in by the earth's doting. Gray baby, pink, white, red baby, black, sandy brown baby. You're the earth's doing and sweet like clay. No such bitterness, but when over-extracted. Velma, like a lump of clay, spinning, a loss of rhythm, a lump somewhere. Do you know the uses of salt? Do you know it's not always a bitter thing? Prismatic view of the crystal, which can be many sizes, depending how extracted from the earth body and for what purposes. Salt enhances and preserves. Think of the sweet of a melon slice when you sprinkle a few granules on it, the long and short-lived practices of curing and salt wash skin and pink Himalayan lamps and halotherapy. Have a pinch when your body won't keep water. Make a brine when your meat's too tough. Leave your lemons in a jar of their own juices, salt rubbed, until they soften. Salt makes order out of some things, controls them, so naturally it's destructive at times. This has its pluses and minuses. There's hypertension if you have too much. Road salt sprays wildly from gloved hands in the backs of trucks each winter, melting a favorite beautiful nuisance and running off into the gutter, eroding land. Salt the earth body and pieces of its die. The line right through all this is the manner of speaking and when. I feel salty often and mostly keep it at bay. It's worth embracing on occasion, but crucial to discern when that when is. There's been a long feminine line of talk about the difference between snakes and serpents, the difference between eating salt as an antidote to snake bite and turning into salt, succumbing to the serpent. Gardenia, lily of the valley and maybe the field, woolly apple mint like mine head, as deep a gouge as ever. It's nothing much to recommend her, to signal she was special. Much too lovely she is to be conducting sewage. Pink you just like noise, sweet pink this little light of yours. Sweet glow orange and sweat the mineral from in. Blue down your surroundings. Blue down your surroundings, peachy baby. Blue down your surroundings, peachy baby, but unblue me, ease my breath. Pressure points of the earth body, seabeds dried out and breathed in, evidence of an old body recycled in this new one. Didn't get to the sea, but I let out a lot of tears. I cried, salt tracked my face. Anissa talked about their friend who cried so much in the winter, the tears froze and left tiny cuts across her cheeks, And so she walked around Chicago, visage self-marked, inspiring fear in others of the weather. It might have been the wind chapping, but I'll believe the salt story, little large earth body emission pouring out of one and marking, and I'll believe in the pools we make ourselves, the littles and larges of us, and I'll believe in the act of crying, especially when uncontrolled, necessitated by the weather and our uneven planetary conditions. And I'll cry, and one day I'll know precisely why, and one day I'll understand the sea. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Imani. It was beautiful.
Thank you so much, Imani, for that beautiful ode to the earth and this day as well. Nuestra siguiente lectora es Jazmina Barrera. Jazmina Barrera es la autora del libro de ensayos Cuerpo Extraño, Foreign Body, que ganó el premio Latin American Voices 2013. Es la editora y socia fundadora de Ediciones Antílope. Jazmina Barrera is the author of the book of essays Cuerpo Extraño, Foreign Body, which won the Latin American Voices Prize 2013. She's the editor and co-founder of the amazing press based in Mexico City, Ediciones Antílope. La pantalla es tuya, Jazmina.
Hola, muchas gracias. Voy a leerles fragmentos de un cuento que se llama La Edad de las Pesadillas y que me pareció que venía al caso porque estamos en un momento en la Ciudad de México de mucha sequía, de incendios por todas partes, bueno, como en muchas otras partes del mundo con esta crisis climática. Este tiene ligeramente que ver con eso. 1. La voz de mi hijo se escuchó en el monitor. Esperé un segundo con los ojos cerrados, sin perder la esperanza de que se volviera a dormir, aunque eso casi nunca pasa. Tiene 2 años, dicen que es la edad de las pesadillas. Casi todas las noches se despierta 2 o más veces llamándome o hablando asustado en un lenguaje que no entiendo, a pesar de que durante el día tiene ya un vocabulario muy amplio y buena pronunciación. Esa noche me llamó de nuevo, fui a su cuarto y lo abracé. Después de un rato sin lograr dormirse, me pidió que le cantara una canción. A esa hora, en Duermevela, me vino a la mente Los Padres de San Francisco, una canción antigua que hace más de 20 años no escuchaba y que canté por última vez quizás a los 6 años. Me pasa mucho eso últimamente. De los rincones más recónditos de mi memoria emergen canciones infantiles de todo tipo, desde tonadas de publicidad hasta las que me cantaba mi abuela. La canté entera y después hice una pausa en la que intenté por todos los medios no quedarme dormida. Cuando me sucede, despierto un rato después desorientada y con tortícolis, hasta que supe por el ritmo de su respiración que estaba dormido. Traté de desprenderme de su abrazo sin despertarlo. Fracasé un par de veces y al tercer intento, una media hora más tarde, me paré tratando de no hacer ruido. Regresé a mi cama y, como siempre, el problema fue volverme a dormir. La respiración ruidosa de mi esposo me distraía y empecé a pensar, y ya sé que cuando empiezo a pensar todo se va al carajo. Repaso la lista de tareas para el día siguiente, trato de resolver algún párrafo que me está costando trabajo escribir, y así transcurren los minutos hasta que me da hambre o siento ganas de ir al baño, y entonces sí que pasan horas sin que logre dormir de nuevo hasta que escucho otra vez la voz de mi hijo en el monitor llamándome y todo vuelve a empezar. Para no irme por esa espiral endemoniada, traté de concentrarme en mi respiración. Cuando era niña y no podía dormir, eso me decía mi madre: concéntrate en tu respiración, y servía la mayoría de las veces. Esta vez no sirvió de nada, así que recurrí a un truco menos ortodoxo. Pensé en Mishka, el gato de mi madre. Desde que nació mi hijo, desde que las noches se me rompieron, me empezó a dar mucha envidia Mishka. Es un gato negro, de pelo corto, con ojos verdes y una sola pata blanca. Mi madre vive a unas cuadras de nosotros y vamos a visitarla casi todos los días. Ahí veo a Mishka, siempre echado. Va detrás del sol en los distintos sillones de la sala o en el jardín, ronronea, se levanta despacio para ir a su plato rebosante de comida y luego al regazo de mi madre para recibir cariños y dormirse otra vez. Sin preocupaciones, con todas sus necesidades cubiertas, entregado al placer y al descanso. Quiero un día, solo uno, de la vida que lleva Mishka, un día de no pensar en nada, de dormir a rienda suelta. Alguna de esas noches de insomnio se me ocurrió imaginármelo, concentrarme en él acostado bajo el sol, con la sensación de la luz y el calor sobre el pelaje y la suavidad del sillón acolchonado. Con la mente en blanco, solo atento a los ruidos de la casa, a los ruidos más pequeños, que poco a poco van desapareciendo. Se convirtió en una técnica infalible. Esa noche también bastaron unos minutos de pensar en Mishka para quedarme dormida. 2. Todo ese día tuve la canción pegada. Los padres de San Francisco sembraron un camotal. Qué padres tan inocentes, qué camotes han de dar. Ay lere, laila, ay lere, lu. Si no me quieres mi vida, me partes el corazón. La muerte siriquisiaca jalando su carretón. Parece una sombra flaca bailando en el malecón. Ay lere, laira, ay lere, lu. Si no me quieres mi vida, me partes el corazón. El diablo perdió un centavo la noche de San Miguel y era el único dinero que tenía para perder. Ay lere, laira, ay lere, lu. Si no me quieres mi vida, me partes el corazón. Entre más sonaba en mi cabeza, una y otra vez más me gustaba. Quise saber quién la había escrito, en qué año, de qué padres estaban hablando, de qué camotes. No encontré nada en internet sobre la historia de la canción. 3. Le pregunté a mi hijo, ¿quién es el diablo? Alguien con espada y muchos soldaditos, me respondió. 4. Despertó a las 3 de la mañana. Logré arrullarlo rápido y regresé a mi cama. Pensé en Mishka enrollándose sobre sí mismo, acomodándose en un bucle. No estaba despierta ni dormida. Entonces pasó algo distinto. Mishka bostezó y de su boca abierta, llena de dientes y colmillos, salió un estruendo como de una ola gigante estrellándose contra las rocas. Desperté de sobresalto. El corazón se me agolpaba en el pecho. Había algo diferente en esa pesadilla que no parecía estar hecha solo de la sustancia de los sueños, o quizás era eso lo que llaman sueño lúcido, un sueño con residuos de la voluntad de la vigilia. Pensé que me estaba volviendo loca, que 2 años de dormir mal al fin estaban haciendo estragos en mi cerebro. Tenía la vívida sensación de que ese gato era real, de que no era Mishka, o sí lo era, pero a la vez era algo así como un demonio. 5. El diccionario de etimologías dice que para los griegos y los romanos, los demonios eran mediadores entre los dioses y los humanos. Como los cristianos no lograban acabar con su culto, les atribuyeron maldad y malicia y una alianza con el diablo. 6. Pensaba en el diablo por culpa de la canción, era obvio, pero me resistí a aceptarlo. 7. Seguí investigando y esto es lo que logré averiguar. Según la tradición, la noche de San Miguel, el 29 de septiembre, el diablo se escapa del infierno y se oculta en las casas para que San Miguel Arcángel no lo atrape. Para evitar que entre a las casas, hay que colocar sobre las puertas una cruz de ciertas flores amarillas llamadas pericones. Esas flores ya se usaban desde antes de la llegada de los españoles en una fiesta que se celebraba en esas mismas fechas, dedicada al dios Tlaloc, a las deidades de la lluvia y la cosecha. El pericón protegía la cosecha de los amo quali ejecame, los aires no buenos. ¿Qué clase de animales son esos aires?, pregunta un joven en un cuento náhuatl. Que los aires no son animales, esos aires se respetan, responde su padre.
Gracias, Jazmina. Nunca te había escuchado y me encantó. Muchas gracias. Sigue la poeta Xiao Huang. Xiao Huang's poetics emerges and expands through music, ephemera, and printed matter. She is interested in love, queer chronicities, epistolary address, and écriture féminine. La poética de Xiao, Xuan, Huang surge y se expande a través de la música y el material impreso. Sus intereses son el amor, las cronicidades queer, el intercambio epistolar y la escritura femenina. Welcome, Xiao Xuan.
Thank you. It's really exciting to hear my short bio being translated. Thanks for doing that. Can everyone hear me okay? Awesome. By the way, it's also amazing to be contiguous with so many awesome performances and readings. The day shifts into civil twilight, and still there is more to it than that, a longer sequence to the absence of light. I want to tell you everything without a complete image, without narrative, so as to keep some of it. Rows of wood standing up in the sun, casting shadows, a million sundials on the ground, all saying the same thing. The best part of this is coming back after a long time away. Summer boys who have shaved heads and widow's peaks, the blonde of strangers. The best part is somewhere in you, a meteor shower of birds. Both an allowance to be studied and studying are profound experiences of being addressed by another. A diacritic which falls from the air, so it finally makes sense to lean my head on your shoulder. I am weak for sympathy in this of all possible worlds, where a contour connects and encroaches on the next, where the news won't report where you are, and I just have to think of you and dedicate this to you now. Not for anything, but to keep saying you, to maintain through text the conditions for subjectivizing you, whom I can't receive directly from, because it unravels me. You become more plural than you think, and increasingly exact, like a place on my tongue populated with nerves dedicated only to tasting sweet fruit in its juices. A soda from the vending machine, predisposed to poetry. It takes all of language to encircle a nucleus of desire until it's as good as named. What I want is all I ever wanted. It was always this totalizing. Your face next to mine, in the changing light due to atmosphere, due to all time being intervals we have so little of. Blind striding the light coming into my eyes. I'll make plans, but what I want is for you to come get me now. Make me undesperate for language. Very things. Cross through your physicality, your family, your ability to perceive a new reality. Maybe these multitudes appear, or maybe they are invisible, but remain indivisible from the work you do by virtue of you and your body. I don't know how to get out of this routine, how to cut away from a voice when it sings in circles around me. I'm perpetually and proleptically nostalgic, thinking of plums on an imaginary branch in the country, the plum I kiss while eating, the plum you kiss while eating, and the same rain having made them both plump answering in our mouths, then coming down on us for most of our days. while the coffee cools at a rate faster than I can drink. The faint smell of air conditioners in public spaces. What's left after spinning around so many times? Only our capacities to remember in such a way that has nothing to do with remembering.
Thank you so much, Xiao, for that beautiful performance. Thank you for being with us today. Our next reader is a familiar face and old friend. Attie is a visual artist and poet who lives and works in New York. She is the author of These Figures Lining the Hills and Under the Aleppo Sun. Attie es una artista visual y poeta que vive y trabaja en Nueva York. Es la autora de los libros Figures Lining the Hills y Under the Aleppo Sun. Welcome, Alice.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
It's an honor to be amongst all these wonderful artists. I'm going to read 4 poems that are new for my upcoming volume. The first one is called 10 Selves. The first one was a sayer. He said all things that came to him, all things that the mind could, all things that the mouth could, all things. The second was a saver. She saved all things to keep, all things tiny, all things grand. She saved and kept all things. The third one was a looker. All things he gazed upon, all things he considered, all things he held up to the light to turn and look upon, all things. The fourth one wasn't able. She was unsure. In all things she wavered. In all things her mind traveled forth, traveled back. In all things she was uncertain. The fifth one was a counter. He counted the days, he counted the steps taken, he counted things heaped in piles, counted all things in view, he counted them. The sixth one was outside. From all things she stood outside. Towards all things she swerved. From all things was distant, from the center, from the sides. From all things she stood afar. The seventh one repeated. All things he heard, he repeated. All things he read again. All things he passed, he turned to pass again. All things he imagined again and again. The eighth one was in the middle of, always in the middle of the stirring. She was in the middle of the crowd, in the middle of the commotion, in the middle of, surrounded by all. The ninth one wrote it down. He heard and wrote what he heard. He dreamt and wrote what he dreamt. He wrote down all things known, all things imagined. The 10th one was an embellisher. She heard the stories and expanded them. She thought, and her thoughts grew. She adorned all things she enhanced. Schubert in the library. She is listening to the C major quintet and arranging books into piles on the library table. She thinks about Schubert, how the young composer carried Beethoven's casket in the procession, how months later he himself, dying in a small bedroom, longed to hear Beethoven, how all things come to an end. The trees are tossing their leaves in the sun. They toss their branches onto the library table, dancing across the books. She straightens her back against the chair, thinking about shapes, about words, her back against the back of the chair, how books lift their shapes among the branches. Shape is a word that shapes. Beauty has a shape, and then it does not. Shape is a word. Beauty is a word. She remembers by the sea how the stones were round, shaped by time, giggling in the surf, ancient. They moved silver through the silver light. In the library, she listens. Schubert, she thinks, is shaping her sadness. She watches the light of the sun, how the sea glistened, How from the surf, the stones rushed towards her. She straightens her back against the back of the chair. The shadows branching on her books slowly disappear. She pulls the chain on the library lamp and watches the light shape the shape of a shimmering circle on the library table as she listens. Dreaming. She is in conversation with another who she cannot name. The disturbances of longing impel her. She sees herself everywhere in the margins and in the night. She composes a catalog of desire. She would like this to be atopic, to have no object, to desist in its own addresses. She imagines a figure scrolled for the eye, an object traced for the hand. Dreams are heaped in the night. They travel in darkness, and in darkness they dissolve. She appears to others as the one she imagines herself to be. She finds no metaphor for this. To anchor her thoughts, she takes hold of shapes that populate her mind. As she opens and closes her eyes, the words accumulate. They are stitched and unstitched. They can converge in a quilting of desire. Her longing rests in language. It is blunted by the acts of silence. The ruddy contours of the heart push against her, and she dreams. Flesh to flesh, she touches words. They tumble through the mind. She questions their excesses. Her thoughts begin to transfigure. They are ribbons wrapping and folding and unfolding into large, unutterable events. She casts about the room, and when her eyes open, they rest on the surface of things. Her thoughts become scandalous, flinging their flames into darkness. Everywhere she senses complicity. There are stories she wishes to tell. Words fall like chips from the avalanche of language. They hang small and indecipherable, and in the middle of the night, a million lights come to light her way. Desire enters and leaves through an invisible door. The air is drenched, dropping its hot breath. Moonlight begins and ends. Sounds rise and fall. She converses with another who she cannot name. Before and after. Come, dear one, come. Steady the undone doings, steady the divisions divided, steady time in the branch visible. Come, dear one, come. Be close, be near from far, as time in increments of time suspends. Come, wander with me, come. Listen to the rain, its radiance, its rhythm, tapping the mind as the chirp of a bird. I thought I saw, I thought I heard, will be for us something ineffable as the hawk that circles along the long walk, along the long afternoon. The frogs in small clusters, dropping their croaks into silence, leaning into the reeds, their gold tones in chords, heaving us into thought. Come, dear one, come. Be close, be near from far, be steady as the tree is steady, as the bird seeing, your eye seeing is a mystery tumbling through us. Measure the days, measure the hours, measure the years as we are, as we were, as we will be in time present, in silence presence. Here and here and here is tumbling through us, steadying the stranger knocking at the door, steadying the voice breaking up, breaking down, steadying the oak whose branches swing, whose leaves flutter. Come, steady us as tongue to page. Come into the reach of language. Come into the moment. Come as the sun against a cloud, just barely in slow season comes, just barely as darkness into daylight comes. Be close, be near from far. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alice. So great to hear you read as always. Our next performer is Alina Maldonado, who's a classical violinist from Mexico City, but she couldn't be here today, so she sent me a video, which I will play now. She did it especially for Ecos Virtuales. So, Alina Maldonado es una violinista de formación clásica que transita entre la improvisación libre y la composición con medios electrónicos. Alina Maldonado is a classical violinist whose work transits between free improvisation and electronic composition. Let me know if the sound is good. Wait. Sorry, 1 second. Share. Yes. Okay. So that was Alina, really beautiful. And our next reader is Edwin Torres.
Edwin Torres is the author of 9 books of poetry, including Zoe Talks from Wave Books, Ameriscopia from the University of Arizona Press, and Yes Thing, No Thing, Roof Books, among others. He has performed his bodylingual poetics worldwide. Today he'll perform an excerpt of his mantra poem, Futopo, using music he created with the sound artist Steven Vitiello. Edwin Torres, New York, Estados Unidos, es el autor de 9 libros de poesía que incluyen Zoe Talks, de Wave Books, Ameriscopia, de la Universidad de Arizona, y Yes Thing, No Thing, de Roof Books. Ha presentado sus poéticas bodilingüe en todo el mundo. Hoy presentará un fragmento de su mantra poema Futopo, utilizando música que creó con el artista sonoro Steven Vitiello. Welcome, Edwin.
Thank you so much for having me here. It's great to be here. It's a real honor to be with everybody at the same time. So my internet connection is unstable. So I'm yet to figure out how to work Zoom mistakes into poetry. So that may happen today. So I'm letting you know. Anyway, thank you all for coming, and here we go. One, come back to the hive and save us, a terrible thing, save us, fear, the one, tear of all fear, the tear of all fear is fear, the tear of all fear is a fear drop, boy drop, fear the boy who says, I am I am just the biscuit boy says with love, says fear with love, says love with love, a terrible thing is love. Peligro de amoridad, peligro de consumidad, peligro de cantaradad, peligro de soledad, de nada. The worker speaks for the worker. The people speak for the people. La raza speaks for la raza. Fear the fall, fear the catch. Save the many, save the match. Save them, save ellos, save halos, alas, solar roller gyrate. Save them, save the missile, save the warrior, save the man, Esta palabra de nada, siempre palabra, sin tener cara de nada, viejo de santa, piedra cantada de nada, luna pintada de nada. Level the field. Level the field and heal. Sever the heel. Sever the heel that feel. Help the wretched. Help the wretched intolerable. Help deliver. Help delivery sparrow. Help intelligent marrow. Help a la piscilate vulture. Motor motor mors, terifos, terrafin, terrifalucin, terrify, errorist, terrorist, mecha error, mesa error, terrification, mirification, mecha fixation, mecha mess of this. Manifest the wretch, manifest the light, manifest the end, manifest the rise, manifest mantrayana, na isla de mama pequeña, adentro, adentro, inside, inside, inside of my in is no in, no in, no, no, New York, New York, recuerdo de cerdo. Esta ciudad de mi suelto, no yo could ever be new, no yo could ever be new, no yo be new, no Isla is my island, no Isla is a man, no Isla made me Bluesfit, no Bluesfit is no man, no limb, no wings, no don't correct me, don't erect me, no eye, no stand, no mama, no man, no bam, bambo, rambo, mambo, riqua, no man, qua. No barrier, no barrio, no barrio, no barrio, no cipher barrio, no body barrier, no cuerpo no tiene concepto, no cuerpo, no lingo babaloo, no lingo babaloo, no, see the vaya luz in the nada, catch the vaya luz in the nada, fly the vaya luz in the nada, mi no habla poesía, sí, alfa me caga mi raza, habla palabras de nada. This is the point I could never return to. If I back down, I could never return. This is the point I could never return to. If I turn back, if I turn to make your turn, to make your mean something. Thank you.
Thank you. That's great. That was amazing. Our next and last performance is Gryphon Rue. Gryphon Rue es un artista, compositor y curador trabajando entre disciplinas. Su álbum North of the Future, de Astral Editions, grabado con Mershe Blasco, es música que busca construir una nueva realidad localizada. Gryphon Rue is an artist, composer, and curator working across disciplines. Rue's forthcoming album, North of the Future, from Astral Editions, recorded with Mershe Blasco, is music for constructing a new localized reality. So welcome, Gryphon. The screen is yours.
I really enjoyed everyone's reading. It's been very wonderful and intimate.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I really love to create this enclaves, these enclaves, is that how you say in English? Niche of people gathering. Thanks for everyone who read. The performances were amazing. Really, I'm always astonished by what we can do on this medium and on Zoom. So thank you. And if you want to hang out for a bit, you can't hear me?
Thank you, both of you.
Thank you.
It's really
Thank you both. Fantastic.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. And thank you.
Gracias.
Thank you so much, Tisoneras.
Gracias, Jazmina.
Thank you to Lucia Melia as well, who's behind the scenes producing endlessly and perfectly. Very piping.
Sí, muchas gracias, Lucia. Gracias a todos.
Good night.
And stay tuned for one more
Buenas
session.
noches.
Yeah, stay tuned for the next one. We'll be here. And we'll let you know. Gracias, Alejandro. También.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Bradley. Bye,
Nos
Imani.
vemos. Gracias. Adiós.